What is going on? The Catch fam, hope you guys are doing phenomenal tonight. Hope everyone has had a great Monday and had a great weekend. Here we are. One last game in week 17. Championship weekend concluding. The 2024 fantasy football season concluding. So we're going to hang out tonight. If you guys have any Monday night football questions, let us know. Hope you guys set maybe some final decisions. If you have some Lions, Niners players, whatever it may be, in your championship game, we're here to help you guys. Other than that, we're going to hang out, talk a little bit about the 2025 fantasy football season, go over the top 24 picks in the 2025 season, which we're going to get your guys' help on. And outside of that, we're just going to talk about the playoff picture, how things are looking, and hop into the dark off season that is now almost here. And but as usual, we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna talk some fantasy football, and Pete's in the house. What is up, man?
Not much. Feeling good. Probably gonna be a Catch Fam League champion, barring the greatest comeback and upset in the history of football with an 80-point burger from Jawan Jennings and nothing from George Kittle. So I'm feeling pretty good, but kind of sad. It's over.
It's over. It is sad. It was weird last night. I sat down. I watched my Commanders clinch a playoff berth. And that was the first football game I've watched all year long where it was just like watching a normal football game, you know? So it's just that time of year. The deep, dark offseason is coming. But we're going to have a lot of fun this offseason. We're going to do a lot of Dynasty content. Probably within this week, I'll be hopping into some of Underdog's playoff tournaments, but I don't want to do that until tonight's game is over. Or actually, no, I don't want to do it. I don't know if I want to do it until week 18 is over. I want to make sure I know what teams are in the playoffs and what teams aren't. So, but we'll be doing some Underdog content, Dynasty content. Got some other plans for the off season for you guys, and we'll be back here in mock draft season before you guys know it. But if you guys do want to join, we're going to do a 2-round draft for 2025. The link is in the chat. So if you guys want to get in here, we'll start going through that whenever that fills. And we're going to go through, like I said, the top 24 picks in 2025 and just let you guys help us run that. And we'll see what happens. But I don't think you guys will mess this up. I trust you guys, but I know there's some different opinions in terms of who should be on top of the board and everything. So, nonetheless, like I said, the Commanders have clinched a playoff spot. Packers are still in, even though they lost. We got a big game next week between the Vikings and Lions. And outside of that, we still had the Bucks and the Falcons technically kind of head-to-head for that division. So, correct me if I say this wrong. The Falcons win, and they're
Buccaneers. Buccaneers control their own destiny.
Sorry. I meant to say Buccaneers. Buccaneers win, and they're in.
Yep, Bucks win in.
Okay.
If Falcons win, Bucks lose. Falcons in. If they both lose, the Buccaneers are still in.
Okay. So that'll be interesting next week. Sure. Then we got the AFC. So that the Dolphins and Bengals need the Broncos to lose. And then between the Dolphins and Bengals, both teams need a win. But if the Broncos lose and the Dolphins and Bengals both win.
Oh, both win. Dolphins in.
Dolphins are in. Okay.
Yeah. And if they all lose, Broncos in.
Okay. But if the Broncos just win, they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's going to be kind of interesting. So the NFL does have some scenarios next week for interesting games.
And there's a couple of seeding situations too.
Sure. Okay. Well, that'd be interesting. They better put that Lions Vikings game.
It is Sunday night. It's already flexed.
It's already flexed.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say because there's like There's no way that's not the bet. That's going to feel like a playoff game for sure.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
they've
it
already
is a
set.
play. Yeah,
They've set the schedule. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Cool. That's good to know. So Browns Ravens Saturday. Bengals Steelers. I guess do the Ravens and Steelers do those games matter for seeding?
Yeah, Ravens win the division with a win. If they
Okay.
lose and the Steelers win the division.
So that is interesting. That is interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. I see. Panthers Falcons. I mean, that's gonna be. Yeah. I hope the Panthers they show up.
Yeah, to not show up this week.
I know. But the Buccaneers play the Saints.
Yeah, Buccaneers
They're
got a very good scheduled break to finish the year.
they gotta be. I mean, it's any given Sunday. I mean, you saw the Colts this past weekend, but I feel like the Bucks got that one.
And they're at home. Both games were at home. That helps.
And I
a
guess that's
lot.
the other issue is the Broncos are not playing starters. There's no way. So that kind of takes some of the fun out of it. For I mean, I guess you never know. I mean, but yeah, Dolphins, Jets, and we'll know Bengals, Steelers on Saturday. Okay. Cool. We got a lot of meaningless games, but as always, throw some bets together and all that stuff, and make it more interesting. All right, guys, link is in the chat. Help us fill out this mock draft so we can start rolling through. I'll send the link again. And we'll start hopping into the live chat while we wait. But we're going to go through just 2 rounds, top 24 picks for 2025. Chase with the super chat. Thanks for the help this year. Won a league last night, hoping to win another. Crossing our fingers for you. Always appreciate you being around, Chase. And thank you for the super chat. All right, let's see. When are we going to start back up 2025? I mean, we're doing one right now. We're just doing 2 rounds, Bryce. So we usually start mock season pretty early, but we'll have some focus on Dynasty content this year too. So thanks for helping me win this year. Up by 80 with my kicker left. Started Higgins, Neighbors, and Evans. Beautiful. Congrats. Did you win any Catch Fam leagues, John? Well, Pete is going to win one, which is good. I am projected to win the 1 quarterback Dynasty League number 2. But I need 23 points from Kittle and Debo. So I'm projected to win by 7. So even if they're a little bit under their projections, should be okay. But I mean, Detroit's coming to play. So the game script should be there. But like, it's a tough matchup for Kittle. It's a good matchup for Debo, So we'll see. I'm projected to win that one. Then I'll get 3rd. I've secured 3rd place in the Superflex Dynasty League that, I mean, you're in, J-Dubs, so I'm still upset about that. If I went to the ship, I would have crushed the championship because I would have faced Steven, who had an awful week and no second quarterback. But that's it. Yeah, you guys kind of smacked me around this year, not going to lie. Kudos to you guys. And I'm probably going to win the championship in both fantasy endgame leagues I'm in, which are just as competitive of leagues. And then in one of my long-term leagues that I played in forever, I'm probably going to win that one too. But we shall see. So I'm looking at 5 championships. Pretty dang good. All right, guys. 3 spots left for our early draft. Link is in the chat. Never had it so good. Got St. Brown tonight, down 33. Only players that did anything were Devonta Smith and Lamar. Side note, I told you guys, never lose your faith in Devonta Smith. I said it all season long.
Stay strong.
No. B-Rob, A-Chain, and Adams choked. Yeah, I at least was pretty down on B-Rob. I felt fine about A-Chain and Jonnu and Tyreek Hill, which we talked a lot about Saturday night, and Jonnu and Tyreek showed up. But they also pulled A-Chain like end of the 3rd, beginning of the 4th. And they just took him out of the game. Like, I mean, it was pretty obvious they were going to win. even though that game was still kind of close towards the end, but they just straight up took A-Chain out. So that was tough. That was tough. I don't know if he got a little dinged up or something, but
I mean, he's always dealing with something.
he's always dinged up, yeah. So that sucked. He only had like 5 points. B-Rob, we talked about not being very high on B-Rob. Adams, I was a little surprised, but the Jets just got, gosh.
They're the Jets.
They suck. They suck. Please trade Garrett Wilson. Albert, what's going on? Can we get a longer timer? Yeah, for sure. Also, guys, you're going to have to scroll around a little bit. Like, you're just going to have to. It's still going by last year, which I think you guys know. But, yeah, I'll update the timer to 2 minutes. All right, 2 spots, guys. Get in here. And let's do this thing. No random order, just wherever. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's just for discussion. Never had so good. Says go Birds. Need Gibbs +1 to outscore Amon-Ra and Goff. I'm so cooked. Yeah, probably. I mean, Goff's got a safe 10 points at worst, 15 points at worst, even if he has an awful game for some reason. And Amon-Ra's probably got a safe 10 points. I mean, it could happen. You never know. But, it's probably not going to happen. Up 16, my opponent has Bates and Lions defense. Not looking forward to this at all. I mean, if the Lions defense just is cooked,
I think they're kind of cooked.
Yeah, and I would not be starting them right now. And Bates just has kind of like a mediocre game. I think you have a shot. I'd be more concerned about Bates. Hopped in at 4. This is the next year mock draft. It is just the first 2 rounds of next year, just for some good old discussion. Andrea, good to see you. I need 7 points from JMO tonight. Wish me luck. I think you got that. It's going to be a good JMO night tonight. Got St. Brown tonight, down 47. This is a free win. For you or for your opponent? Yeah, I mean, I could see it is kind of a tough matchup for Amon-Ra, but he's got to be involved. Got to be involved. I mean, 47 points is steep. Very steep. I don't think that's going to happen. Had A-Chain in the Colts defense. Wish I knew they were both only going to play one half. Yeah, the Colts defense.
They didn't even play a half.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone saw that coming. Like, I think they had on average -3 fantasy points. That had to be my worst call of the whole week. But like everyone made that call. Like the Giants were giving up like 10 points on average to opposing defenses. It just happens. It happens. What are you gonna do? But most of the other calls for streaming defenses were pretty solid this week. Even the Raiders showed up. I was worried about the Raiders, but they had 14 points. So that was definitely encouraging. And Miami showed up as well. Those are really my main 3 calls, were those 3 teams going into the week. So it was honestly a tough week to end in terms of streaming defenses. Yeah, NED yikes. What are the Giants doing? Playing for some pride, I suppose.
Just want to make their fan base even more miserable.
Yeah, there's really no other way to put it. like I don't know what they're doing. All right, we're full. Thank you guys for joining. And let me just tag everyone on Discord. So make sure you guys, take your time, scroll around, and you're going to have to, search players' names and everything because it still has last year's ADP. Nothing we can do about that. But we're just doing the first 2 rounds, 24 picks, and we'll kind of go through these and talk with you guys about what we got going on. So I think the 1.1 is a little bit up in the air. I would say for me, it's between 3 players, and it's just going to depend on if you want to go running back or wide receiver going into next year. And that's kind of what comes up on a regular basis every single year. You kind of have to make that decision. You got 3 guys here: Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Saquon Barkley. I think those are going to be the most commonly drafted players. And unless we see some sort of freak injury between now and August, I don't think that's going to change. You got JJ as a wide receiver 2, Chase as a wide receiver 1, and then you got Saquon obviously as the RB1. So I think it just really depends. Do you want to start your draft going running back or wide receiver? And I will do over a dozen drafts next year. So if I had the 1.1 in multiple leagues, I would be switching it up. But for the sake of tonight, I think throughout the majority of the offseason, the most drafted player we'll see at the 1.1 will be Jamar Chase. So I'll take him off the board. But I think there's a really fair argument for JJ or Barkley there as well. And there goes Barkley at the 1.2. I think those 3 players will be the most commonly drafted players, but you got a lot of other names here in the first round that I think there's always an argument for. We talk about it every single year, right? The first 8 players, there's some sort of argument for, and we saw that this past year. There were players in the first couple picks that did not live up to expectations. Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey. So it's always hard to really nail down what are the correct picks. But I'm interested to see some of the players that start to move into the first round here tonight, because there are going to be some interesting players for sure. All right. Let me try and keep caught up with the chat here as well. So J-Dub says Chase at the 1.1, especially if Higgins is gone. See, part of me feels like Higgins being there is still a good thing for Chase. Some of those plays get kind of opened up more potentially because defense still has to account for Higgins. Do you think Higgins will be there next year or
no? No shot. They already said
shot.
they're not re-signing him.
Yeah.
He's not signing with them.
Joe Burrow wants him. It's just like
Joe Burrow wants everybody though.
Yeah. They're in a tough spot. All right, so we got Barkley at the 1.2, JJ at the 1.3. I think that's going to be what you'll see most of, at least in early. I mean, we're as early as you can possibly be here. Lamb at 1.4, I'm okay with. Bijan at 1.5, I think makes a lot of sense as well. In terms of players that could go here, yeah, Gibbs would be the next player that I would think of. The next couple picks get really interesting. I think these 6 picks here, there's maybe one. Yeah, Amon-Ra. Okay, so the first 7 picks I think make perfect sense. I think 1.4 through 1.7 there could be kind of moved in different directions based on whatever, But now is when it gets really interesting, because I think there's a lot of players that can move into different positions here. So, really debated Puka there over Lamb. So Puka is one of the players I'm looking out for here. I think Puka will go pretty dang early in drafts next year. And there goes Brian Thomas. He's another name that I think will go pretty early as well. And there's still one more young wide receiver that I'm interested to see where he goes. And I think everything in the second round is kind of up in the air here as well. But I have no problem with Brian Thomas going this early. I mean, he has shown out with Mac Jones at quarterback and with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. So I don't know if his quarterback situation really matters. Through 17 weeks without tonight being played, he's the wide receiver 3 on the season. So Amon-Ra can jump in front of him depending on how many points he scored. So at worst, B. Tom is the wide receiver 4 on the season,
on a terrible team with no quarterback.
Yeah. So I think that overall it makes a ton of sense. Nico is interesting here because it's really hard to look at Nico's year. You know, he was the wide receiver 1 through the first 5 weeks of the season, and then obviously missed week 6 through 10 and was fine, like a slow start week 11, but he had the touchdown call back in that game. That was his first game back from injury, then was really good next couple games, fine in week 16, but then just did not show up in that championship game. So I think that kind of the combination of Nico having a poor championship weekend and then CJ Stroud having such a down season, I think it's going to leave a sour taste in a lot of fantasy managers' mouths. And I won't be surprised if Nico falls back a bit in the offseason, but I still think Nico's a good pick here. And it's another year where I feel like AJ Brown's just kind of like disrespected. He just always kind of goes in this range. And through 17 weeks without tonight being played, he's the wide receiver 11, top 10 wide receiver the 2 previous seasons. And, wide receiver 11 with missing 3 games. Still had a really solid year, even with Saquon doing tons of Saquon things. So I think 1.11's fine, but I might like AJ Brown a tad bit more than Nico Collins. But I think it's kind of pick your poison, you know. All right, now a little couple running backs going here. Kyron is another name where I'm like, Kyron had a great year. RB6. I don't think Gibbs is already ahead of him. No shot a Niners running back moves in front of him. So he'll finish not possible. So he'll finish the year as the RB6. Like just a solid year. RB7 last year. So, almost in the exact same spot as last year. So I always kind of feel a little weird about a Sean McVay offense. I feel like everybody feels a little weird about it in the offseason for some reason. Like everyone panicked about Kyron last year. Cup and Puka's ADPs were like all over the place. They moved pretty high towards the end of the offseason, but still, I feel like Kyron will be a really solid value going into next year. Then 8 chains off the board at the 2.1. Then Henry, right? This past offseason, those two were neck and neck. The Neighbors. I really wanted to see when Neighbors went off the board. Neighbors is going to finish the year as the wide receiver 8, which is pretty dang impressive, similar to Brian Thomas Jr., but maybe even a worse quarterback situation for Neighbors. And this is my concern in the offseason, like for redraft with Neighbors, is what is his ceiling with Daniel Jones at quarterback? And then we got a lot of Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock, and he had 36 points yesterday. Although that game was kind of an anomaly, but he only gave you single digits once, and that was the game he was coming off of concussion protocol against Philly, who at that point in the season was playing lockdown at cornerback. So other than that, he just was as safe as possible throughout the year, super safe floor. And the upside when it was there, although it was relatively sparingly, it was still there. So I wonder as the offseason goes on where Neighbors will go. So and once again, he ranked that high with missing 3 games. So then we got Brock Bowers off the board. We'll talk about that. Tommy, I hate when the Bills go up big and pull Josh Allen, face Burrow, Neighbors, down 47. My Gibbs versus Laporta. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Probably done. But second place is good. Seriously, second and third place is still good, especially dependent on your league structure. Should still be a payout. Oh, get out of here. Who should actually go here? Who should? Okay, that's fine. I'm going to change it to Jacobs. All right, let's see. Is Kyron top 12? I guess we kind of already touched on that. I think top 12 is fair for Kyron. Still 3 receivers available, I think, could end top 5. Yeah, this is where it gets a little muddy. Oz says he's down 20.8 in my championship game. Have J-Mo and Gibbs. You're fine. You got J-Mo and Gibbs. You should be good. Should be good. But okay, so we got Bowers at the 2-4. I am really interested to see where Bowers is going to go next year in drafts.
High.
And I think the interesting thing, and I'm not trying to compare Bowers to Laporta, but the scenario is similar, right? You had Laporta coming off of a massive rookie season, and then, I mean, Laporta was good this year. Laporta was below expectations, but he's going to finish as a top 10 tight end. So I don't know. Do we get a similar type of situation where everyone is eager to draft Brock Bowers and maybe he plays a little bit under expectations, but obviously Bowers' season has been much better than what Laporta did in his rookie season. But you guys know me, I just don't draft. I don't draft tight ends that early. All right, so I'm gonna let the second round finish, and then we'll roll through what has happened. And I also want to take a second to scroll around. I feel like there's got to be like one player really far down. You know who was very disappointing this past week?
Who?
Jaden Reed.
Yeah.
Just
They
trash.
suck.
I will never play Jaden. I will never draft Jaden Reed ever again. All right, what I'm going to do is I am going to make a pick, but I also just want to make sure, like, there's a handful of players here that I think are worth talking about, like quite a few, and I just want to make sure we talk about some of them as well. Not actually. Where do you guys value Cooper Kupp after the worst
Never.
playoff run ever?
Yeah, never. They suck.
Jeez. What is Kupp's contract like? That's
Probably not great.
I wonder, because he's still on the team next year, but he's got to be just fading out. And I mean, like, he was playing fine, but it's just the playoffs just non-existent.
The Rams' offense has looked bad / weird.
Yeah, they're kind of winning these kind of like
weird, low-scoring, grindy games,
which I don't know if it's going to hold up. All right, there are quite a few players I like here, and I'm not going to get into quarterback discussions. For me, it's still too early. But I guess you could argue for a quarterback here as well. But there's quite a few players that I think could go here. And that makes me a little stuck on this final pick for the night. But I'll just go James Cook. But there's quite a few. All right, so we're gonna stop the draft there, and we'll see if I missed any players. But let's kind of pick up where we left off here. So Josh Jacobs at the 2.5. So for me, with Jacobs finishing as the RB5, I guess the biggest question would be, like, what does it look like to run this back next year with the Packers? Obviously, they made him, I would argue, the focal point of this offense. especially as the season progressed. I mean, look at this stretch, weeks 11 through 16. And like, it's a tough matchup yesterday, and at least he still scored, right? Weird. He had 69 rushing yards and a touchdown 2 weeks in a row. But nonetheless, I mean, double digits every single game except for week 3 when Malik Willis was doing all the rushing himself. Weird game there, revenge game for Willis, but great season. I mean, I think that's pretty fair for Jacobs. Like, I think the running backs here in this kind of range are interesting. We see Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, then I went James Cook to wrap up the draft. But you still have some interesting names at running back. You still got Breece Hall. I mean, for what it's worth, for anyone who has hope in Breece Hall. David Montgomery, I think if Monty didn't have the season-ending injury, I think he'd be right here in this mix. Maybe a little bit outside because he's a little bit older. But I think Monty's still up there. Still is going to finish as a top 20, if not top 15 running back. Then the other guy that comes to mind is Chase Brown. I actually almost went Chase Brown over James Cook, but Cook just had such a solid year that I think you got to keep him right there where he is. An interesting name at running back that might float outside this tier for me is J.K. Dobbins. If he's back with the Chargers and looking like another workhorse year, then the other name, Joe Mixon. But some of these guys like Dobbins, you got the injury concerns. Mixon didn't really show up in the fantasy playoffs, which always impacts the following season. And he's older, and the Texans just didn't really excite a lot of people this year. But Mixon is still going to finish as a top 15 running back and was really solid for quite a few weeks. The chat, let me know if anyone's coming to mind here. That you guys think should be. Oh, and the other name. What are we gonna do with Christian McCaffrey next year?
Never again.
Yeah. I mean that's a tough one. I think C-Mac will arguably still go at least by the 3rd round. I would have to imagine, but he's gonna be kind of like one of those picks that's gonna have it's gonna be polarizing for sure. For sure. Definitely no Travis Etienne in this range next year. There are like some other names that are close, but I think the picks that will be the most outside this range, most intriguing, are going to be. It's probably going to be Chase Brown. I could see Chase Brown sneaking into this territory. Monty coming off an injury, like I don't know. It depends. Like, if he plays again this year, and looks really good, like through the playoffs or whatever. These things, and recency bias definitely comes into play. So, but then looking at wide receivers, we have Mike Evans, Rashee Rice, which I don't have beef with, Tyreek Hill, and Drake London wrap it out here. So, there are a lot of names here. Ladd McConkey, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jordan Addison, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Cortland Sutton. I mean, there are a lot of names. George Pickens. I mean, obviously there's a lot of volume when it comes to wide receiver, but I mean, you got Devonta Smith. There are a lot of possibilities. Zay Flowers, like you're going to see a lot of wide receivers kind of flop around throughout the offseason in this range. So Terry McLaurin, J-Dub's bringing him up. And Ghost Hunter says, also trying to draft Sutton every year since he always falls late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though Terry was a no-show last night.
Yeah. There was a duck on the field, if you guys missed that. And Underdog did a post about the Ducks stat line compared to Terry McLaurin's stat line.
One touchdown. Duck had a touchdown.
And this is an interesting, where are we taking McMillan? I think once again, with some of these players that really emerge late in the season, it'll depend, like, what does McMillan look like week 18 and then through the playoffs, however far the Bucks make it. Recency bias is really going to matter as much as the fantasy season matters and players finish to the fantasy season. What happens through the playoffs all the way through the Super Bowl will matter as well. But McMillan, I mean, I talked McMillan up for the past 3 weeks straight and has completely. I mean, here's the other thing, right? Is Chris Godwin will play next year, so there's going to be discussion about that too. And people's thoughts and opinions will change, but I don't see McMillan going in the third round. Especially once people start to talk about Chris Godwin again. But I don't know.
Godwin might be a free agent.
Oh, okay. Well, that will help. Never mind. If that's the case, then I think McMillan could go in the third round. But we always see wide receiver twos. I mean, they fall back, you know. So, I mean, in some drafts last year, like Devonta Smith went at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth, you know. So we'll see. Not drafting C. Yeah, no one. A lot of fans of not touching CMC. Yeah, Chuba's an interesting one as well. I think that's a good one to bring up. You know, obviously Jonathan Brooks, the future is up in the air. I mean, I'm not saying he's never going to play again or anything, but you know, it is questionable, to say the least. So I would, and they re-signed Chuba, so I mean, he's in a good spot. You've also got like the Seahawks running backs, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, you know, was having a phenomenal season before he got hurt. So there's a lot of names at running back that I think just have some question marks. But some of them will be worth drafting where they go, and some will be steals. And we saw the running back position be as valuable as ever this year. I mean, running backs outplayed wide receivers based on ADP. So there are some really interesting running backs, but Chuba probably leads kind of like in terms of running backs that got drafted late this past year and will be drafted earlier this year. He's probably up there. Pacheco is such a question mark.
That's an understatement.
I just don't know what happened. Was he just not fully healthy? Like,
we're gonna have to watch in the playoffs, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't
agree. And he has a rib injury now, so
Yep.
I just, with Pacheco, and you guys know me and Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, I don't feel great going into next season right now about Pacheco. I just don't. I don't. And speaking of Pacheco and players that I love, I mean, Rachaad White, he's going to go later, and Bucky will probably see even more volume next year, but I will be drafting Rachaad White next year, as long as that ADP is down for sure. Chase Brown is definitely a second and third round pick if we had the 2025 projected picks. Forgot he existed. Yeah. So very close to going Chase Brown over Cook. But I think that Chase Brown will easily be in that range where we're seeing like Bucky Irving go. It's just going to come down to your, you know, what draft you're in and if running backs or receivers are going there. I do want to look through here. Yeah, I don't think there's really, like, I think Kupp is a really big question mark. He still got DJ Moore, will probably be close here. depending on Higgins' landing spot, if he's not with the Bengals, like I could see Higgins going. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, what if Higgins is New England? Like if
yeah,
Higgins goes to the Patriots, like that's Drake May's number one receiver.
yeah, and Mays looked good.
We do love Drake May.
Yeah, I mean, he's good enough, right? So
He's kind of good.
yeah, all right,
Patriots are just the worst team ever. It's fine.
right. Their offensive line is awful. Play calling's awful. But yeah, I could see Higgins going pretty high. I could see like with the excitement around Bo Nix, especially if the Broncos do end up making the playoffs, and even just like if they lose in the first round, but they have like an offensive day, right? There's going to be more buzz around Bo Nix, and I could see Sutton maybe having for once a respectable ADP. Here's a good question: where does Chris Godwin go, assuming he's healthy? And I guess I can check because I don't actually know, but I'll see if he is a free agent next year, or not. Let's see. Yeah, he will be a free agent next year, so he's considered after T. Higgins the top wide receiver target.
Gotta be.
Yeah, and he was playing great until he got hurt. Absolutely great. So it's going to depend on his landing spot, I would argue right now. And until then, we don't know. Judy, maybe. Judy's an interesting name to bring up too, but it's just if Watson's a quarterback, like I'll draft him.
Nobody wants to play with Deshaun Watson as their quarterback.
Yeah, it's like the magic Judy we got, the revenge game and the little run. I just don't know if we get that unless a good quarterback is playing. Like, and they're gonna go back to Watson next year. So I think Judy, fourth or fifth round. Like, like what we have to start to get filled in here is like the next round of receivers and running backs, the next couple tight ends that fill in, and when do quarterbacks start going, and then some of these guys kind of on the, well, maybe we'll do a full draft at the end of the week or something. All this has shown me is going RB heavy first 3 rounds and just trading for any receivers with slow weeks. I mean, that worked this past year. The year before, going heavy at wide receiver worked better. And there's never a true formula. I mean, it's all, points for, points against, who did you face this week, who got hurt, who didn't get. I mean, there's so much, luck and everything, but we did. Another thing is there were a lot of good free agent wide receivers towards the beginning of the season too. So it just depends. There's never a true formula. If you could predict it for me, how many yards and TDs do you think Gibbs and Jamo will get tonight? I mean, I would say like Gibbs, his floor tonight is 12 points at worst. If we're looking at, I'm just gonna look at fantasy points. Jamo's floor is like 6 to 8 points with the ceiling of like 20 plus points. So Gibbs should have a very solid game. The Niners run defense has really fallen back. The Niners secondary has been playing better than their run defense by a lot. Ashton Genty, a third rounder. Yeah, then we're going to have to start to get the rookies involved here. And there are some rookies in redraft that will go high this year. I don't know if I would say it's as good of a wide receiver class this year, but it's not bad. But the running back class is pretty good. Shaheed could be fun if New Orleans had quarterback play. Yeah, he'll probably, due to the injury, like he'll get drafted late, is what I would say. But also like, is Chris Olave alive? Has anyone seen him? But
whereabouts unknown.
Like, yeah, there are some interesting receivers that were high draft picks this last year. We had a lot of injuries this year, right? When you have Olave, Ayuk, Waddle's been banged up. Diggs is going to be a free agent. Tank Dell, I don't know if is going to be an option next year. We did see Rashee Rice get drafted here. We talked about Godwin. Christian Kirk was probably going to get traded if he didn't get hurt, and obviously Brian Thomas completely took that over. So, but there are, I think Ayuk and Olave are really interesting, like kind of bounce back candidates going into next year who could have valuable ADPs. I'm going to be all over Jawan Jennings, Debo getting cut. Yeah. So speaking of Ayuk, Jennings, I could see going higher. James Conner, interesting. Yeah, I think Conner is always interesting. But, and like, it's like the perfect storm for James Conner and ADP next year because he's ending the season injured. So probably going to go late again. I think Marvin has better production with a decent wide receiver too, and he gets all the hard routes. Yeah, so I'm glad Marvin Harrison Jr. has come up because he's going to fall back in drafts, but he really reminds me, like redraft wise, of JSN after JSN's rookie season. And I think that in Marvin Harrison Jr.'s second season, he could be much more productive. And I don't know, like, if the Cardinals are really looking at coaching changes or anything, or quarterback changes or anything, but it's not like, I mean, the Seahawks made coaching changes, but Geno was at quarterback again. So I could see Marvin Harrison Jr. falling back in ADP, which obviously, based on tonight, he's probably going to. But I still think that Marvin Harrison Jr. could end up being a really solid pick next year. Touched on Kamara. And I also think, like, Neighbors and B. Tom separated themselves from Marvin Harrison, and maybe arguably Ladd McConkey too. But I still think he'll be interesting. Now, here's another Marvin. Marvin Mims interests me. I think Marvin Mims, especially if, once again, week 18 and however many playoff games the Broncos play, if Mims is productive in those games, I think he could show up as well. Could be next year's J-Mos' Ghost Hunter. Only Browns player I'm considering is their kicker. He might not even be that good. Can Jacoby Myers get a quarterback? That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, production-wise, Myers is always kind of up there and it's kind of a sleeper. The Raiders may get a good quarterback, maybe. And Njoku slept on every year or gladly buy again. Draft always feels a bit light without rookies. It's always an exciting day when they add the rookies back in. Cats, have a good night. Slatton says he won with the Colts defense, A-Chain, and no CD. Very nice. Olave is fool's gold all the time, in my opinion, as a Saints fan. Terry is a guy you want in the 3rd or 4th round despite the dud last night. Yeah, and I mean, I'm relatively concerned about Chris Olave. I'm interested to see when Olave will go, like, you know, because he actually is supposed to practice this week. Like, I mean, I respect him for not finishing the season, but it's not like he's coming off of a knee injury or, you know, these injuries that give us concern going into the next year. He's coming off of a concussion. You know, if I was Olave, I would have just, you know, I would have said screw this too, you know. But he was a bit up and down, but so were the Saints in general before he got hurt. Double digits in 4 games, single digits in the other 4 games he played in. So, but by single digits, we're talking like 3 points. Week 6, he had negative points, 2.3 points, 3.1. So, I do think a lot of the other receivers in that range I would rather draft. But Terry, even with last night, is gonna finish as a top 5 wide receiver. And he's going to be that veteran wide receiver one undoubtedly for this team next year. But the Commanders got to invest in another wide receiver for this team.
I think, yeah, that's for sure going to be their first pick, probably. Or maybe they sign him. Maybe T. Higgins is going to Washington.
Just imagine if Higgins or Pickens or Ayuk really did go to Washington. But Zacchaeus, he was playing pretty good last night, and he had that one touchdown call back, and he was pretty dang good the week before. But other than that, he kind of sucked, to say the least. I really started Pittman and CD spot. Finally won my first chip. Congrats on winning the chip. For the record, I don't think any Colts wide receivers will be going in the first 4 rounds. Where are we taking Tyrone Tracy? That's a good name to bring up as well. I think he'll fall back a bit. A lot of good this year. But I think the Giants are kind of in a state of question mark. I could see him being a part of like the early dead zone for running backs. But I think he'll fall back a bit because like my concern at the end of the year here with Tracy, for example, was never really Tyrone Tracy. It was the Giants offense and their effectiveness to move the football. So as we get more answers on the offensive outlook for the Giants, I think we'll see Tracy's ADP move around. Hello, Mr. Bakes-a-lot. Go Center. Ladd was a Chargers wide receiver one who also wasn't the sole focus of defenses for some reason, it felt like. So there might be some regression from him. That's fair.
They also probably get another receiver. So maybe it probably pushes on that too.
I mean, and the Chargers, I mean, they feel like one of these teams that, like, I mean, they might do some damage here in the postseason. Anyone can, but you feel like they're a couple pieces away from being pretty dang scary team. I mean, the offensive line is good. The defense has been a little wishy-washy, but when they play like mediocre to bad teams, like a shutdown defense, and you know, when they have a good run game, it's a good team. So, but yeah, if they were to add another true wide receiver to this team, similar to Washington, you know, like it's going to do a lot. So we'll see. All right, speaking of Colts wide receivers, Downs is a nice sleeper. I mean, he always kind of is, but it's just like the Colts. What are the Colts? You know, I think.
Did you see Pat McAfee just like torch them today? Like, good God.
I think Bowers and McBride are easily the class of tight end. Might even be tempted to take Bowers at the turn if I had picked 12 and 13. Yeah, I would say those guys are kind of moving into like the Kelsey territory where we could see them very early in drafts. I mean, last year was people still drafted tight ends early. So if Cousins or a QB upgrade goes to Cleveland and Njoku is the value again. Yeah, and for me with tight ends, it's always just wait. Just wait. There's always value at the end of drafts. Johnny Smith, Njoku, Zach Ertz. And there's always plenty of names that pop up. Let's see. Carlos got Purdy, St. Brown, and Bates going against Laporta down 10. You should be good. I would say at worst, Purdy easily negates the 10 points and St. Brown and Bates get you through. Where would we project Higgins on New England's roster? I could see him going at the end of the second round. Ladd probably goes 4th round, but depends on if the Chargers trade for Garrett Wilson or who they add. Yeah, and Garrett Wilson's another name. Like, I mean, I think Wilson could go in just about any range. He's still a top 15 wide receiver this past year. It's just like,
who's he playing for? Yeah, like what's his situation?
Is he going to get traded? Is he not going to get traded? Who's the quarterback? So Adams is on a 1-year deal, or like
Who the hell knows? Yes,
I don't even know off the top of my head, but
he'll be out of there.
yeah, he'll be wherever Rodgers is, I guess. What are the teams we're avoiding going into 2025? You know, I don't know if I'm ever really avoiding specific teams.
Maybe the Titans.
Yeah, Titans and Browns come to mind. But then again, like there's always some sort of value even on bad offenses, something that we always talk about, right? But like we talked about Judy, like I don't feel great about Judy going into next year.
49ers question mark offense we feel really bad about.
Yeah, and like I do think that one of the narratives already going to next season is people being down on the Niners, and being worried about if they do re-sign Brock Purdy, what is left, Kittle's getting up there, CMC is obviously getting up there, Debo's gone. Is Ayuk actually a wide receiver one? Well, Jennings is probably okay, but a lot of people worried about that team going into next year. Some people worried about Arizona, the Jets. People, so
Yeah, the Jets are probably a good one because they're
yeah,
not probably. I don't think Rodgers is going to be back. So
yeah, that's a big question mark. I would argue that the Giants, but like we already talked about this time, like it just didn't really matter for Neighbors. Tracy, I think there's a larger concern, but I'm not going to worry about Neighbors, or like I'm not going to worry about the Jaguars and Brian Thomas Jr. But now you said the Titans, and I do like I don't love Calvin Ridley, for example, but I do find Tajay Spears, the way he ended the season, to be a little bit intriguing. Although Tony Pollard, I believe, is under contract.
he is, but
Yeah.
it's like I have no idea what their offensive line's going to look like.
Yeah.
Who's their new quarterback? Is Brian Callahan even going to be the head coach
Yeah.
next
Lots
year?
of questions. Lots of questions. But I would take Tajay Spears probably at his ADP right now. Steelers, another name here. That's fair. I still think. Here's the thing: like, what is Pickens really? Pickens is a upside flex risk player.
Mm-hmm.
So I will probably still take Pickens at his ADP at the moment in the right situation, but I don't view him any more than a flex. And are they going to re-sign Russ? Like, what is the quarterback situation? I mean, they're still in the playoffs, I mean, but they have some
They just
question
feel
marks.
like they're dead. Like they're just been losing all these games.
Same old story. Brian, not taking a tight end in the first or second. I personally will not either. Saints, Jets, Colts, except Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, these are all good options. Well, to avoid. Free Garrett, free him. DJ Moore is a 4th or 5th rounder. Yeah. And like, so once again, I don't know if Keenan Allen's there or not next year, but DJ Moore, like, he'll have a floor. He's a good floor play always. So, Andrew, I want to thank everyone for your help this year. We are always happy to help. And I think you're taking home the Catch Fam League #1 again, or did you lose? Either way, second place after getting first place next year is not bad. All right, so you're projected to win by 2 points, but you got Gibbs. J-Dubs has Debo. That could be a little matchup. You never know. J-Dubs is up by 5. J-Dubs started Brenton Strange, who had 0 points. And Kyle Pitts on the bench. The best thing about Kyle Pitts is that he scored a touchdown.
I can't believe he actually caught it.
I know. It had 14 points in the championship. Does it make sense to trade DJ Moore if you're Chicago? No, not to me. No. But Ghoster says the Bears trading DJ Moore would be the most Bears move ever, which I do agree with as well. Do agree. Brian Callahan's going to be the starting quarterback. And Chig we trust. Hey, yes. I'm glad Chig at least had 10 fantasy points. One fantasy nation under Chig. There we go. Waddle's finally a 5th rounder. Finally. Dylan, this to win $1,200. Full PPR. I'm currently in the lead by 49.2 exactly. My opponent has Gibbs and Jennings. How do you like my odds? I think you're good. I could see you losing. I could see you winning. But if it was like 39.2, I'd be a little bit more scared. But I think those extra, like, almost 10 points will be okay. But if Gibbs has like a big game or Jennings, I mean, the problem here is it's a really good matchup for Gibbs and a really good matchup for Jennings. So I wouldn't say I would say it's close to 50-50. But I would still say I think you're good. But it could be close. Where's Tyreek going? I mean, like I said, if you look at tonight, some of the names that I think could have gone in front of Tyreek, Chase Brown, Garrett Wilson, Jordan Addison, Ladd McConkey, JSN, maybe Monty. And you got Drake London, James Cook. So I could see Hill going before all those guys. I could see him going after any of those guys. So Terry McLaurin probably in the mix there as well. So I think end of the second, beginning of the third makes sense. Wide receiver 20 on the year. I think that makes sense. Yeah, I would have not started Pitts either if I were you, J-Dub, so I get it. Should have just dropped him so it felt better. Yeah. All right, guys, so there's a little fun. First 24 picks going to next year. Lots of discussion. Good luck to anyone who does have players starting tonight who you need points from. Good luck to everyone who has not yet wrapped up your 2024 championship. And like I said, we'll probably do a full mock draft maybe at the end of the week. Start to do some Underdog playoff content. Start to roll into some Dynasty content. And just take it 1 month at a time until we're into 2025's fantasy preparation mock draft season. Where do you take Gianti as a Cowboy? I think he'll probably be in that range of like, I think maybe to start the offseason closer to where we're seeing like Cook and Bucky go. But I could see him moving up around the Jacobs Henry range. There's going to be hype. You know what I mean? Going to be hype. So, I mean, I'm trying to think of recent rookie running backs. Bijan went
first. Yeah, Bijan's going pretty high.
Very early. So maybe even higher. And Gibbs was pretty far back in that rookie season.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could actually see him going pretty dang high. I could see him. I still think Barkley, Bijan, Gibbs will go before him. But I could see him going pretty high. But like I said, initially in the offseason, I think he'll be a little bit further back, then he could gain momentum. If I'm Travis Hunter, I'll declare as wide receiver. I mean, I do think that's the best move. And if he does declare as a wide receiver, I think he'll get much more aggressively drafted in fantasy. But it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen. But we will talk about more of this as we get into some Dynasty content. And we will be doing rookie mock drafts as well. And for anyone in here, I'll be making this announcement throughout the Dynasty Leagues. But I will be starting one official Dynasty League for this season. Basically, I mean, I'll take it as seriously as any other fantasy league or dynasty league, but basically so we can have one startup draft this offseason as well. And Pete doesn't know this, but I'm going to do everything to convince Pete that he has to join that league as well. But I will be making that announcement across the dynasty leagues, and you guys in the dynasty leagues will get first dibs into that league. Just so you guys know. But give it another week or two before I start kind of honing in on the dynasty content for the year. But that league and those of you in it will help kind of steer some of the dynasty content, like the rookie drafts, and just need some of you guys in the community who are focused on dynasty content to be around throughout the off season. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun. But all right, guys, thank you guys for a great season. Congrats on anyone who won their championship. Congrats on anyone who wins their championship tonight after tonight's game, and good luck to everyone in championship situations that rely on the Lions and Niners. And this was fun. Like I said, we'll do some more mock drafts and have some more conversation as the months progress. We'll hop into lots of Underdog content as they start to open up drafts for next year as well. And we'll be hopping into plenty of dynasty question or content as well. So Pete, I'll let you say bye and we'll get on out of here and watch some Monday Night Football.
All right. Good luck to everybody who still needs it tonight. What a great season, guys. And yeah, getting into the off season. This is fun. Getting ready for 2025.
Yep. All right, guys. If I don't talk to you guys, Happy New Year and good luck. Thanks for a great season. We love you guys, and that'll do it. With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on the catch. And peace.